Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, it feels like the game was designed to be played with sword. They have access to Master Strikes, they have more combinations, and probably cooler looking ones than any other weapon in the game, but I think there is something special about just clubbing someone to death with a mace, so in today's video, it's going to be all about heavy weapons. We're going to talk about the advantages of using heavy weapons, what skills or techniques you should be prioritizing, what combinations are most effective, and of course, how to navigate through tricky group fights. And we're going to get into that real quick as this video does actually have a sponsor. I have to show you guys this product right here. These are my Raycon Everyday earbuds, and this product is sick because they're extremely affordable and they're also noise canceling. So that means finally you can walk around your house and you can just completely block out the sound from your wife or your kids, or most of you guys are gamers, so I guess we're talking about mothers right here. And let's see if I can multitask and put these in while I'm talking here. But what I like about these things so much is that they're super durable. So not only do they come with the carry case to keep everything secure, but they're also dust resistant and water resistant. So that means you can take them around through your daily ventures, and you're not going to worry about them breaking or getting dropped in a little bit of water and never working again. And I think my favorite feature about these earbuds is that I don't have the best memory straight up. And I know I'm not the only one here who sometimes I'm scrambling to leave my house. I go to grab my electronics and I realize I did not charge them the night before. And these things, they will charge in 10 minutes. And that 10 minutes of charging gives you an hour and a half worth of listening, which is enough to get through your morning commute or whatever you're doing. And you can get a pair of these Raycon earbuds or any product from their website at 20% off. I know you guys love discounts. You got to go to raycon.com/stride-as-angels, or you can just click the link down in the description. That'll get you there too. And check out their website. There's a bunch of really cool products. And of course, my favorite is this little carrying case that they sent me that came with it. So sick. Looks amazing. When you start the game in the Trotsky region, the heavy weapons are going to feel a little bit weak compared to the swords. Heavy weapons, they do really well once you start leveling them up. I feel like they don't open up really until you hit rank 20 in heavy weapons. And the real advantage of using a heavy weapon is that in the end game, these things do bonus damage against armored opponents. And as you get later and later into the game, the armor that you're facing is going to be heavier and heavier. So you really want to destroy those knights. So now if you want to start bludgeoning knights to death, here is what you want to prioritize. The heavy weapons, they have 3 attacks, but not every attack here is created equal. Actually, the overhead attack is super strong on the heavy weapons, and the reason for that is it ignores the armor of the helmet. And this basically means that a max level Henry will 1 or 2 shot virtually anyone in the game to the head. And you land these headshots by using a mix of charge attacks, feints, and combinations. So let's just talk about charged attacks quickly. If you didn't know this, if you hold down your attack input in KCD2, you're going to do a stronger attack. Basically, you'll see the weapon get held up a little bit higher, and this means you're going to release a full strength shot that's going to do more damage. Now, charging attacks goes into the strongest technique on the heavy weapons, which is feinting. Feinting is when you hold down an attack input in one direction, quickly switch it to another, and then release. Feinting from slashes into overheads is going to be the bread and butter of your heavy weapon offense. And since feinting is so important to this build and making heavy weapons work, you want to prioritize getting a perk called Masterful Feint, and it's in the Warfare skill tree. And this, what it basically does is just allows you to land more feinted attacks, which you need to do if you want to cause damage, because riposte wars with the heavy weapons, it kind of feels like you get locked in them, and you don't want to do that. Speaking of riposte wars, this weapon is not the weapon for that, especially early levels. You're not going to land many attacks because it is so slow. What you want to do is you want a perfect parry and just kind of back off a second, wait for that riposte window to clear, and then use your feints along with our Masterful Feint perk as the majority of your offense. Does this mean you can't riposte? No, absolutely not, but you want to mix it in and prioritize, especially in 1v1 situations. You want to use feints whenever possible. And while we're on the topic of OP techniques with the heavy weapons, if you choose to play this way, go to the strength tree. There is a perk called Wrestler, which allows you to win more clinches. You can basically spam clinches with heavy weapons, and it is insanely strong. Once your strength level gets up, you can 1 or 2 clinch tap virtually any enemy in the game, and you even have a chance of disarming them disarming them, sorry, when you're using heavy weapons. So this perk is insanely strong, but I would recommend just kind of mixing it in so you get the full extent of the combat system and not just cheesing fights. Now you're going to notice as you go in the skill trees of the heavy weapons, a lot of it's pretty self-explanatory, right? If you're going to go with an axe, you pick the ones that have to do with axes. If you're going to go with hammers, you pick the ones that have to do with hammers. Once you're level 30, it won't matter because you're going to have everything unlocked anyway, so just prioritize what you would rather run. Now, a lot of the perks in the skill tree do focus on landing combinations. It seems like the game really wants you to use combination attacks when you're using heavy weapons. Now, the combinations I key into are the only ones that use upwards attacks, so I use Middle Haw and Crushing Blow because these have overheads in them, and when you land one of them, you're pretty much going to kill the majority of the enemies that you're running into in one combo. So these are probably the combos to land, but if you are struggling landing combinations, the simple left, right, left is a good place to start because obviously you don't have to switch your attack directions. The weapon does that for you, so all you have to do is time it correctly. And combinations on heavy weapons are super strong and super OP in 1v1 situations. I would say even up to 1v3 situations. But if you're a crazy person like me and just runs into every bandit camp you see to fight 1v7 or 1v8, I want to tell you guys that combinations are not going to be the way in those longer, more extended group fights. The problem with throwing combinations is that enemies will attack you through them. And so it's not like a master strike where the animation gets locked when you're using a sword. You start throwing a combination, someone can flinch you out of that. This can create all sorts of problems in group fights, so you want to be a lot slower and a lot more methodical when you're fighting in groups. The first thing you need to focus on always is trying to keep as many enemies in your line of sight as possible, and ideally where only one of them can attack you. Until you cut down a few people in the group fight, the basic premise is going to be move, try to feint to overhead, move again and reset the fight, try to feint to overhead again until you're able to get a person or two down, and then once those last 2 or 3 people are left, that's when you can start really opening up with your combination attacks. So should you go with an axe or a warhammer, at the end of the day, I don't think it really matters. Your character gets so strong that they're both going to do the trick. Now, I guess the general consensus or idea would be that earlier in the game, the axes are a little bit stronger because they do have increased chances of getting bleeds, which can basically take a bandit or an enemy out of a fight the second they start bleeding. They usually tend to either back off or run away. Axes are also going to be a little bit stronger against flesh than the Warhammers are, and then the Warhammers start to really come alive in the middle towards the late game when you're fighting mostly armored enemies. But the thing is, as with any weapon in this game, they all do the trick, especially once you get higher in level, so I would say use what you like. And now, if you're one of those people who wants to meta everything and you want the absolute strongest weapon in the game, it's a tier 4 Knight's Axe that you craft with Henry. Now, if you're using a heavy weapon, should you use a shield or should you just run it straight up? I would say early game, you can use the shield because there's no real detriment to using that. But once you get some perks unlocked, there is a perk for the using a weapon in the main hand. And there's also a perk in the thievery skill tree called Back Alley Fighter, which gives you bonus damage to using a one-handed weapon without a shield. End game, I don't think there's any necessary reason to use a shield. And you're much better off, I think, running a weapon without a shield so you can just blow up the guys in 1 or 2 hits. Alright guys, that's it for me. I hope the video earned your subscription. If not, there's another video popping up right now. I would check that out and maybe I'll earn it then.